Hello, and welcome to the Vessels of Kingsgrave, Handmaid's Tale edition. We would like to extend a very warm welcome to all handmaids, Marthas, gender traders, unwomen, econo people, and members of Mayday who will be joining us today. My name is Michal. I go by Ink as Rain on the podcast of Ice and Fire forums, and I am joined by a wonderful crew of people who would be totally screwed in Gilead. David.
Hi, I'm David HHH on the forums.
Steph.
I'm Steph, GSDG on the forums.
Adam.
This is Adam Drown Snow on the forums.
And Duncan.
Hey, this is Duncan, also known as Valkyrist on the forums.
Thanks, McCall.
Oh my god, I didn't know you were here.
We didn't see you catch in.
What happened to Treat Yourself?
Treat Yourself was yesterday.
Oh,
Yesterday.
Okay, I'm sorry. And
Today
Matt.
is Treat Yourself hangover. Hey, Varley on the forums.
So, let's go around and start rating this crazy emotional journey of The Handmaid's Tale season 2. What do you guys want to rate? I wrote, we have red cloaks, murder kettlebells, illegal pens, illicit Bibles, and symbolic wolves. I wasn't sure there was anything
How about
else.
missing fingers?
Missing fingers.
Ooh.
Oy vey.
I like
Let's start
symbolic
dark.
wolves.
Okay, so I would probably give this season a 4.5 symbolic wolves wearing a red cloak. It was really intense, but I was very nervous that it would not be able to come close to the first season, and I think they did it really well. I think it's definitely different, but it's intense and kind of has a confidence to it that I was afraid it wouldn't have, but they clearly know where they're going on their particular Handmaid's Tale journey, so I was very pleased with it. Duncan, what did you think?
Yeah, I found the first season mesmerizing and utterly terrifying, and I thought this season was just as good. The cinematography is some of the best I've ever seen on a TV show.
Yeah.
I think it perfectly simulates the suffocation and the tension and the just inherent violence of this world. And like the best dystopian dramas, I think it's effective because of how resonant it feels to a lot of the crises that confront our own society. The acting continues to be brilliant. I think the actors are really good at communicating multiple layers of meaning and intention. So they'll be doing one thing, but they'll be thinking another, and you'll see that sort of play out on their face. And as I continued to be engaged by June's journey, but I was equally fascinated by Serena's transformation this season. The only issue I had was I felt like it repeated a lot of the same scenarios and themes of the first season. It didn't really do a lot with Moira's character, and I found the male characters pretty one note. But I'm still going to give it 4.5 symbolic wolves.
Awesome. Steph, how about you?
Yeah, I give it a 3.5. Just, I agree with a lot of what Duncan said. A lot of scenarios are repeated, and also the ending wasn't as strong as I thought it could have been from, viewing a complete, lionization of Eden's character with treating her like a martyr with her death to, ending with this more of, a standard dystopia ending of, starting a rebellion. So, yeah, I think that also, Mara is my favorite character from the books. I was very happy that they gave her some chance at happiness, but now that they haven't delivered on it in the second season, it's
Right.
I feel a little bummed. So that's just on a personal note.
Yeah, I mean, I do sort of feel like it's unfair to expect characters to be happy in the show.
Right.
Oh no, they're miserable, but they're definitely, they're join the club,
Yeah.
So David, how about you?
I'm going to go 4 3/4. It's not utterly perfect, but I think it's probably the most compelling show on television right now. I have just binged it and actually just finished watching it a few hours ago, and I'm still a little traumatized, but but I've got you all for therapy. And I just found so much of it just stare at the TV with my heart racing, every little escape, every little moment, even just the conversations had me just mesmerized. And I just thought it was brilliantly well done. I mean, depressing as all hell, but I mean, so well done. I think it deserved the Emmy. I certainly think it deserved it over Game of Thrones this season. And the acting was just incredible all around. So not 100% perfect. A few things struck me as a little weird. We'll probably talk about some of that stuff, but as good as television gets right now. We're in an age of amazing television, and this is one of the high points.
Oh, it definitely had me, like my heart racing from week to week with, like last season before, like, because like I'd read the book several years ago, so I knew everything that was, or all the major beats of the first season, but like I still like had to like read an episode review first just to know that they didn't like totally screw anything up, and also just that like, so I had like a forewarning of like everything that new that they had in there that was just like extremely violent. So, but then this season I didn't do that, and that was just not a good idea. It was just like so traumatizing, but I still kept doing that.
Yeah, in terms of like it being riveting, one of the things that I really appreciated about this season, and last season, was that you can't look away from the screen. Like you can't play Candy Crush on your phone, tempting as it is to like distract yourself. Like
Nope.
you have to watch it because every single thing that happens is important. And yeah,
right. I even tried it a couple of times and then had to stop. I was no, I can't. It's not working.
Yeah, it's one of the few shows that I watched this year that is still like I have to watch. I can't do anything else.
Mm-hmm.
So that is
Adam. How many symbolic wolves and red cloaks would you give it?
I'd say like a solid 3.5. I thought that I didn't really like the ending either. I thought some of the character decisions just didn't make enough sense to me and kind of pissed me off. But other than that, I mean, yeah, the acting's on point. The script was great. We got some better range out of some of the characters this season. And, I was uncomfortable as shit like 60% of the time. So
only 60?
Well, I mean, I am a white male, so it probably makes me a little bit more comfortable, I guess. Okay. I don't know. But
fair.
Yeah. No, it's just like it's a hard watch. It's definitely a hard watch, and it's one of those that I'm glad like I watch, kind of every week as it came out instead of binge watching it. I can't imagine.
I can.
Yeah.
It worked though. It worked that way, I'll say. But
And Matt, last but not least, what did you think?
Oh God, I'll give it a 3 out of 5. Like Duncan said, it was shot like a lot of the cinematography was just incredible. Like you guys have been saying, you need to watch the show because oftentimes I found the story confused and lacking, and like there'd be a really strong like episode like when they're on like the wastelands and stuff like that, and then it'll lead to almost nothing. I found a lot of crescendos in the storyline that just faded out, including the ending. I think that was my major complaint about it. 3 out of 5.
Awesome. Yeah, and I'm just being reminded in the chat that we will be discussing spoilers. I don't think we've really discussed too many spoilers to this point, but we will be discussing spoilers for both season 1 and season 2 going forward. So does anyone feel particularly strongly about diving into the new material? Like how this is kind of like an interesting situation. Obviously, we're, as Game of Thrones watchers, we're not unfamiliar with the idea of a show charging ahead of the books, but this is a little different in that, like, The Handmaid's Tale is like this venerated, slim volume, and it has very clear boundaries of what happened in the story, and and here obviously we're just charging ahead, and we find out where June goes at the end of the book. We find out what happens, to Emily. Serena obviously experiences a lot of things that she does not experience in the book. So anyone have any strong feelings about that?
No.
Did you guys ever see The Family Guy where they kind of had that ending the same as the book, where they're like, wait, the dog could talk or whatever? Like, I feel like the book had that weird ending. It's like, and that's how this backward Gilead thing was finally like taken down and regular, democracy was restored. And then they're trying to get from the end of the book to that point somehow. And with that is like the Adventures of June. I don't get it.
Are you talking about the epilogue?
Yes.
Yeah, so the epilogue's like really distant. I thought it, like I said, I haven't read the book in several years, but like I thought it was like, like decades after like the fall of Gilead, which, is like in the book at least is, the regime survives for several decades. So
I haven't actually read the book. Am I the only one?
No, I've not read the book either.
Just curious.
Yeah, I read half of it.
I mean, eventually, I guess it will end because the epilogue indicates that it's this historical document. But I guess that's not necessarily for the case for the characters. Like this might be a generational regime, right. So it'll encompass their entire lives. So they're going to have to go through it. And I guess like that is one of the criticisms that a lot of the story doesn't seem to be going anywhere. And I feel like with the colonies, like it'll just show life on the colonies. It won't necessarily amount to anything. It's just showing a particular aspect of the society. But to me, it felt like this is just life, and this is just these characters trapped. Like they literally can't escape. There is no escape from Gilead. Like physically or mentally, it's just embedded in them. And the best they can do is just kind of preserve some kind of humanity or just like witness what's happening to them. Like a lot of the show is just about observation and looking around them and trying to maintain a sense of self and understand what's happening.
Duncan, I would agree with you, except that like these characters have witnessed the transition from like an American political democracy like to this Gilead.
Right.
So I don't know how there wasn't a general uprising like right in the beginning, and like how there isn't even more instances of people showing their humanity. Like, I think that's a big part of Serena's kind of going back and finding her humanity in the season.
Yeah, I mean, there may be militias, there may be rebellions. We hear bits and pieces about other nations trying to intervene, but that's not really the story they're trying to tell. They're trying to tell the story of this set of handmaids and what they're going through. It's kind of like you could tell, if you look at maybe the American Civil War, you could tell the story of the Civil War, or you could tell the story of a slave experiencing it from one particular vantage point. Because the show reminds me a lot of that movie 12 Years a Slave, and it's because it's asking this question: what do you do if you're dehumanized? Do you fight back, or do you just try and survive and maintain some internal consistent sense of self and hold on to your memories and not fall into nihilism and despair?
So do you think that reflects on June's decision at the end of the season to stay and fight? Because like all throughout the season, it was like, how many times can she escape or break the rules and not be punished? Like, is this her final, like, okay, no, I'm not, like, going back and being a part of this. This is me against, like, the system.
I mean, I'm going to go out and say that I agree with Michal that it was, that her eventual decision to stay was built up throughout the season. But at the end of the day, it's still, or in my opinion, it's still like that decision was still made in order to keep June and Gilead and not make the story about, June and Luke trying to raise enough money to, pay off the Canadian mob to smuggle Hannah out.
Right. I got to say, though, for me, the build-up made sense because I remember, when I was watching the earlier episodes, when she escapes the first time, my first thought was that it didn't strike me as realistic for this character because I couldn't see her leaving Hannah behind, her first escape attempt. So I the whole time I was sitting there going, but Hannah, but what about Hannah? You can't leave her behind. Like, that was the whole thing, especially after the whole, like, at the end of last season when she gets to see her for a few moments and that whole threat that, as long as my baby's safe, yours is. So I couldn't see her escaping. So then when she was about to do it again at the end, I was like, okay, we've got to be going. She's going back. There's no way she's not going back for Hannah. So it made it. If anything,
why
I was
she
just
need to go back. I mean, like, why can't her plan be like, I'm gonna go hide out in the woods and like try to get my daughter? Like what does going back mean? That she's probably going to be even more locked up, like, and have less of a chance to save her daughter? That doesn't make sense to me.
Right.
Yeah, that's my entire. That's like I agree with like what they were trying to say emotionally, but it still just comes back to like what on earth can she possibly do within Gilead?
If she says I'm not going to the border, but I'm not leaving, sort of thing, like but I'm not staying here. Like, I'm, do you have anyone that I can, like, someone in the resistance I can bunk up with and like start the fight? That would go, oh, okay, I get that.
Well,
Yeah.
is it really clear where she's heading at the end there? I wasn't as clear.
Well, it seems like she's just running back to the house.
Is she though?
No, I don't think we know where she's going. I don't think we know what her plan is. I think she must have some vague plan. I don't think she has like I'm going to do this and this and this and this and this. The thing that kept jumping out to me though this season is I think they were really trying to like hammer home that the answer is not in Canada. Like it's not it feels really good, especially in season 1, to be like, oh, everything's fine in Canada. They'll take in all the refugees. It's okay. They'll, do whatever they can. And then like, even with what ends up happening, like we find out that the Canadians are, due to, practicality, being like, oh, well, maybe we can start up relations again with this new neighbor of ours, like it's not like we have repeated scenes of Moira, and Luke being confronted with the fact that like they just aren't, like they're not equipped to do a lot in Canada. There's the woman who they keep asking for information, and she's always like, I'm sorry, I don't know anything, I can't tell you anything. Like Moira has to go through those thousands and thousands of dead people herself in order to find out what happened to her fiance. So like I really think that they were like hammering that home. And I think personally it's smart, because otherwise we would always be like, but Canada,
right?
And it's like, but Canada's not going to do anything. Like Canada can play a supporting role, but if things are going to change, they have to change from within Gilead, which I think is the point of the bomb. I think it's the whole point of,
because Canada don't want to get nuked.
Right.
Yeah, it's a fair point. What can they really do? I mean, we have nukes. What can they do to force them?
And they'll use them. They'll definitely
10 times their population too. Yeah.
Right.
Well, maybe not so much now, but
and we don't know. And we don't know if they're having any success with having babies either, because remember, Mexico clearly is having issues. So we don't know the situation. We haven't, because we really, I mean, for all that we have like several major characters there now, we've seen very, very little of life in Canada right now.
I mean, I don't know if how much of it is just as a result of them being in there, but like, like in the first season, Luke did mention, like the power's back on, and that there's like, like there was like coffee rationed out, or if that was just, it could have just been as part of like what the refugees were allotted, but but also like the exposition on the newscast during the Gilead state visit did mention that, like Canada's economy is like in free fall too, because their largest trading partner imploded.
Yeah, it was a frustrating scene because like she's tried so desperately the whole first season and the first part of this season to escape, and she's so close. So when she just doesn't get on the truck, it's really it's maddening. But I think like looking back, it is sewn into the season fairly well. Like her experiences with Hannah, seeing her again, with Eden, the notion that there's this whole generation of women who are going to grow up in this society and have their minds completely warped. She doesn't want that to happen, and I guess she thinks that she can't do anything in Canada. The only way this is going to stop is from the inside. And I think Serena, like the fact that she was able to change Serena's mind to some extent, and seeing the breakdown of that marriages and that kind of elite structure, like that falling apart, shows that this regime could crumble from within. And she sees some of the power of Mayday, some of the organization of the Marthas. There is something there. There are things happening that indicate a change could be coming. But the final shot, it did definitely strike a very different tone from the series, which up until this point has been much more of like a domestic drama and a psychological drama, which, as you say, Stephanie, it felt much more like a comic book kind of ending, where she's going to fight the rebellion or something. I'm not really sure what the next season's going to be. I can't see how they could have gone to Canada or how they could have done another season like the first two.
Yeah.
But I really can't see.
The show would have to be over. The show would have to be over.
Yeah.
Well, to back up just a little bit before we like get into speculation of what's going to happen, I think that the end is it works for me for a couple of reasons, but one of the reasons is because it's a culmination of a bunch of different character arcs. It's the end. It's a culmination of Emily's character arc. It's the culmination of of Serena's character arc. Obviously, for June, it's the culmination of her character, and I think it also is an important beat in Hannah's storyline, because something I really appreciated was that they didn't, like, Hannah. And this is not a criticism. It's just like, well, she's a very small child. So like Hannah is a cipher in most of the show. And she's just like, this object that is motivating June, and then I thought it was really powerful of them to give her own voice, and to have Hannah have her own feelings, her own opinions.
Devastating.
Also, that episode came out the week that, just to like point to the US like a little bit, the week that the whole family separation thing was happening, and like that's where you have the guard like ripping Hannah out of June's arms, and it's just like, holy shit, like all right,
timing.
And also with uncanny timing, the previous episode, the one with the Canada State visit, that also happened the week Trump blew up at Trudeau at like the G8 mark. And then visited, and then had that bro summit with North Korea. So
I guess I didn't have a big problem with the ending that some people did. I saw it as a little inevitable, maybe a little too inevitable. But one thing I think is interesting is I wonder if, maybe we're just too experienced, or we're so used to this stuff, or maybe we're just smarter. I don't know. But it's interesting that when I was, telling my friends at work that, I'm about to binge the last season, I hear it's a little rough, isn't it? People are like, oh my God, the ending. Oh my God. Like every single person I talked to said, oh my God, that ending. It was so, oh my God. And it's kind of funny because I went into this last episode sitting there watching The Watch going, oh my God, I'm going to start crying soon. Here it comes. So I was like prepared for like Red Wedding level like craziness. And then it was like, oh, that's actually what I expected. Oh, well, that wasn't so bad. So I came into this like expecting for like this to be like total trauma for me right now in this conversation. And yet I get it. It was kind of what I expected. Whereas everyone I've talked to other than you guys has been like, oh, that ending. And we're all like, yeah. I wonder what that says about us, or,
Yeah, no, it wasn't on that level, but yeah, it was, not great.
But so to go back a little bit, I just want to talk about, like, to touch on some of the characters, because I think that's important in like understanding how this all kind of comes about. So June might actually be one of the least interesting characters to me, and that's not like a commentary on Elizabeth Moss's acting, because she is quite extraordinary. It's just like we kind of know everything about her already, so I don't find her as compelling. But does anyone have any particular thoughts on June, especially this season, with her kind of escape and then depression, and then like I was actually really not super thrilled that the last we see of those poor people who try and help her is like, oh, the guy's dead and the son's taken away and the mom's gonna be a handmaid now. The end. I was like, okay, but the mom has to come back, right? She has to meet the mom somehow. Like this has to but
I was expecting to run back into her.
I
don't know, I thought it was like that was her like downfall, was when she did that. And to me, honestly, that whole arc with her right after that really kind of bothered me, where she went from like instantly, as soon as she failed and she found out that they like were killed and and separated and all that she was just, it was my fault. Like that to me struck me as so sudden. And then like an episode and a half later, she's suddenly like, fuck, I'm getting her out of here. I'm going to get my baby out of here. Everything like it was so whiplash to go from I'm running away, I'm going to fight, to no, it's all my fault, I've totally given in.
Isn't that how it works, though? Like when someone breaks, that's just kind of like that's what happens. And then when they kind of get pulled out of it, like it is sudden, right?
I think I felt the unbreak was too fast. I think
also, David, this might be a factor of how you watched it, because watching it from week to week, I thought that they spent well enough time on having June in her funk. And
only like an episode and a half.
Yeah, but like this is like
it was several weeks of like stewing with it
like
real
the
time.
Show just like stomping all over your heart, like.
True.
Yeah, I mean, I think also June ricochets between selflessness and selfishness frequently, those are kind of like her two poles.
Okay.
And like, obviously she's selfless as pertains to, a lot of, Hannah for the most part, but like she's about to leave her. Like that's a harrowing scene for a reason. Like when she's taking off in the plane, it's like, okay, I'm leaving you behind and I'm never going to see you again. And I'm choosing this baby over you. And I agree. It was kind of sudden, but I think that's definitely what they're going for. I don't think they're going for like measured emotional reactions in this show.
Sure.
It's like, yeah. Any other thoughts on June?
I did like that they took the opportunity to bring in her relationship with her mom.
Yes. And Cherry Jones was awesome.
Yeah.
I had one question about, was she trying to kill herself or abort the baby when she jumped out the window?
I think she just like fell.
Yeah, so that I think confused a lot of people, including me. And then I read something that the showrunner said, and he's like, "Oh no, she didn't jump, she just fell." Like, all right,
okay.
Yeah.
But like, I think that like some of the commentary from like the creators was like she obviously wasn't seeking help, and not just because like Serena locked her in her room for 2 weeks for the crime of getting her period. You could stand to reason that Serena wants this baby more than anything, and that like now that she's like actually pregnant and that she's been pregnant for several months, that she could like she's a lot more invested in actually having June looked after. And that as part of that, like June was actually like not seeking medical care as a form of like almost protest. But it's also really hard to watch in terms of like she's just still like not doing anything, right?
I felt like there was a big ricochet between the two kind of characters that June is playing, because like she embodies, like at the beginning of the season, she sort of reclaims June, I guess, and all of these repressed like emotions and desires are sort of fully unleashed with her and Nick, where they're sort of just non-stop lovemaking in that newspaper place, and she's exercising, and she's trying to make plans and trying to remember who she was and figure out what she's going to do. And then all of a sudden that's torn away, and she's trapped again as Offred, and it's like a big sort of snap back into that role, and she just has to kind of live as that character, and more June seems to melt away, and she just becomes Offred. And I think one thing I noticed was she's made, I guess, by the system to become increasingly complicit in the society. So people are punished because of what she does. So she has to blame herself for what happens to that family, and what some of the other handmaids have their hands burned. And she starts to work with Serena. So she starts to feel a lot of guilt and a lot of almost taking ownership over this society. So in a sense that this isn't something that's happened to me, but this happened because of things that I was complacent in, or because of things that I didn't stand up against like my mum did. So I have to kind of take ownership over this in some way.
So, yeah, to go along with what you're saying is, like, I just watched this thing on dictatorships, and they're saying that there's a perfect time and circumstance for a dictator to rise, and that Gilead, it's not only this, like, exceedingly, like, super Christian society, but it came on with this strange fertility event or whatever. So where you have June, who's able to bear children, and Serena, who's not, and, you have that situation that makes her so valuable that she cannot be punished that much where it affect her being able to make a baby, So that's why everyone else kind of gets, blown down around her.
I think, her self-esteem plummets in the middle of the season. Like, she's become really suicidal, and she's totally objectified. She's literally just a vessel, and her body is owned, and the only thing of value is the thing that's growing inside her. And I think the scariest moment is like at the end of one episode, she like just the idea of like the separation between June and Offred. Like, we get June's thoughts and we see Offred actions, but at the end of one episode, like, she says something as Offred and then she repeats it in narration, like we've been blessed with pleasant weather or something. And that was really, it was scary, and it made me think of there's a line in the Truman Show where he says something like you never had a camera in my head. And I feel like that idea of like the eyes and everyone watching you, and you're having to correct everything you do to suit the society around you, that has like penetrated into her own thoughts. Like Gilead is inside her. It's a part of her.
Well, you just melted my brain.
And she she slowly climbs out of that, but that's kind of the lowest point in terms of her not being able to navigate the difference between June and Offred.
Well, I mean, I think that's like a really interesting point, right? Because Gilead being inside of you is something that all of the characters deal with to a certain extent, right? Like Nick, who I despise, pretends that Gilead is not part of him and he has nothing to do with anything that's going on, even though he is, a relatively powerful actor. Obviously there are people like Serena and there are people like Aunt Lydia who, embrace that, who like want to make Gilead as much a part of themselves as they can. And then you have people like Eden who want that, but also struggle with it. And I think it's, and you're even dealing with Moira, back up in Canada, who's kind of fighting with the amount of Gilead that she still has within her. And like, more therapy there, please. Like so much more therapy.
Everyone who escapes, probably.
Yeah.
There's like Gilead the dystopia, but also like Gilead, Margaret Atwood's parody of the religious right and broader, just like historical misogyny over thousands of years. So with the statement, like Gilead is inside you, how much can we just take this to say that like it's for the most part just institutional misogyny that we think that, or that just like that you're just conditioned into and you just cannot give up no matter, all the reasoned class analysis you can, put in your head. You still have these behaviors that you're socialized with that, it's very hard of letting go of.
Well, that's what makes it so powerful, right? And that's what makes this effective speculative fiction, because it's a lot of what we recognize just blown up to a degree that we don't recognize it and can deal with it as a foreign scenario, right?
Mm-hmm. So you said you hated Nick. Why?
Yeah. Well, basically, I hate Nick because I think he is, and poor Stephanie had to listen to me rant about this a whole bunch over the season. But to me, he's like a Nazi. He's like basically one of those Nazis who's like, I was just following orders. I don't know. I can't do anything. It's not my problem. I don't know.
I know.
He married me up to this girl. What do you want me to do? I feel so bad. I don't like her.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, yeah, you poor powerless man with a big gun. Like, dude, what the hell? I put a lot of what happens to Eden on him, and I put, maybe that's not fair, but I do.
Well, the question is how sincere is he in his desire to get power in this culture, and how much of that is him? Like, is he maybe? I mean, clearly he has ties to the resistance since he gets June out, with them. So is he like a secret actor agent on their part the whole time, and this is all an act, or is he kind of into it, but I'll help the people I care about, or is he just sort of playing both sides for himself? It's not really clear because we don't get in his head. He clearly cares about June and risks everything for her, but I don't know what to think of him because I don't get in his head. So I'm not
right. So I do have something to say about this. In the book, Nick is a complete cipher. So, he is kind of like bummed, or so like, just like he and June, promises themselves no strings, doesn't exactly work out that way, but there's not much emphasis on that. But then, like at the end, she tells him she may be pregnant, or she may be pregnant. He's kind of bummed about that. That's just like it. And then he tells her to get in the van. So like, he is more of a bit character, but he's just a complete cipher. I think in the show, he's just, it's the middle of the options that you mentioned. He's just like, he'll help who he cares about. And it's, I think as far as his ties to the resistance go, he himself said, look, I've never like gotten anyone smuggled out before, much less a pregnant handmaid that everyone's looking for, not, some Martha making a run for the border. It's like,
But let's face it, he's an eye. He is a spy for the government, and he clearly knows who the resistance are, or he wouldn't have been able to contact them. So, and he hasn't turned them in as far as we know, although maybe the reason all those people were hung and killed and separated and all that was because of him. We don't know. But so clearly he could get them all in a lot of trouble, and we think he has it.
Well,
so,
that's the thing. Nick is not actively evil. What Nick is Nick is perfectly comfortable with pretending that he has no agency in a system in which he has some of the most agency of anyone.
Right.
And he's selectively willing to appreciate that when it makes him feel good, like, oh, I can help, my pregnant like girlfriend get out of here. I can like go to her husband and like, oh, this is kind of awkward, but whatever, nobody's going to get me in trouble because I work for the commander, and like I think his, like, if he was just like, if he was honest about being selfish, I think I would be a lot less. I would be a lot less troubled by his character. But he kind of reminds me of all of the like, and this will go for any like powerful population. But the type of people who are like, oh, I guess maybe that's slightly hard for you, but like think how hard it is for me. Right. It's like I have to be married to this little girl, and like it's so hard. It's like, and I like how June's like, it's not hard.
Right. Compared to what I've
just suck it up and don't let her get killed.
Right.
I mean,
I agree with you, Michal. It's just like I also am of the opinion that there is a first time for everything, and then it's only been like 3 years within the dictatorship. I think it is plausible that it's the first time he's had someone smuggled out of the country.
Well, I guess that's what I'm saying. I think I'm not sure. You could be completely correct in your analysis of him, and I'm not sure anyway. I can completely see it going that way, but we still have a few more seasons, so we don't know where they're going to head, and it may be different from the books, and you never know what they're going to do. But I'm not sure your analysis is in fact where he is. It very well may be. I just would like to know. So I can't hate him. Like, if he is everything you say he is, then yeah, I hate him. But I don't know that he is.
The book, there's just one book. So what Stephanie said about him being a site.
To say the books on this podcast.
All right, sorry.
I mean, look, it's
a habit.
Look, we all know each other through a Song of Ice and Fire forum. We're going to say books sometimes when we mean singular.
No, but like what Stephanie was saying is he's just that's it. That's all we got. So everything that is in the show is created by the showrunners, whatever. For me, I think he's more of, sure, he has this kind of elite level of power, but we've already seen like high ups getting taken down because of their misconduct. So there's always that risk. I see him more as like a Gendry character where he's just like, I'm going to burn my hand and this for like this lord or this lord. Either way, I burn my hand. I'm just going to do my job. And I think that there's plenty of people in all kind of societies that are just like that. It's like, how do I get by day to day? Like, raise my family. Like, sewer's got to be cleaned somehow, whether it's under a dictatorship or under a free democracy. Like, I gotta do it. Whatever.
Yeah, I don't think he's that powerful. I mean, he's a driver. Like, he has a powerful friend, I guess, in the spy ring, but it is, like you say, Matt, it's that complicity thing. Like, you see how bad it is if you go against the system. You see how you can survive if you go with the system. And he's just been going with the system, and he's done some good things, but he's overlooked other things. And he's not a great guy, but he's done more than a lot of others.
But isn't
I do have to ask
his whole thing like, isn't his flashback in the first season all like, I don't care? Like,
yeah, well,
okay,
no, the flashback's really interesting because that is like every disaffected white male who's attracted who's attracted to these reactionary politicians. That he sees himself as he's aimless and he feels neglected, so he externalizes that discontent onto the world, and he sees himself as being owed certain things because he's white and male, and so he pines for this time when his status was empowered, and he wants to return to that. But what's interesting is when he actually gets that, he's kind of miserable, and he sees how horrible it is for people he cares about.
And let's also remember one very important thing, though, that I think we have to, when we consider our analysis of this character, is that ultimately he deals the strongest blow to Gilead of any character in the show. And that's by delivering those letters, which he did not have to do, and directly go against his own power and his own country. He delivers those letters and completely damages international relations. I mean, not only does Canada shut him off, but we get in a news broadcast the UK has as well because of this. And I mean, he didn't have to do that. Now, did he do this for June? I don't think June even remembered these letters at this point. He did this, and it was a major thing against the government. And that's what makes me wonder if he isn't really like more of an agent for the good than we think. I don't know, but that was a major thing, and he didn't have to do that, and we should remember that.
Yeah, I mean, and also for when he got dragged off after, driving June to see Hannah,
Right.
I was convinced, once the credits rolled on that episode that, he was going, that was his
over.
comeuppance for releasing the letters, and that they
Yeah,
found out immediately
exactly.
after having an investigation, and, Eden snitched on him, and, just.
I was actually waiting for Eden to snitch on him the whole time, and I was.
Me too.
Yeah, we all were.
I was really surprised she didn't.
Well, okay, let's talk about Eden. I
have one more point to make about.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
So just, are we convinced that Nick's, Nick is right now on deep cover in the Waterford household? Do we have any evidence that there's been a lot of turnover in the intelligence division at the top? Are we convinced that Nick's true purpose hasn't been lost in the shuffle? Because it seemed like it was just Price who knew about his missions.
Or lost in the storyline and the writing. They might have
that too.
changed it. I don't know.
Because that is the source of a lot of his power, and I don't expect you to change your mind over him over this, Mikal. But just that if we have, if Price is dead and no one at the I Ministry believes that he was that he was working for Price as Waterford's driver, then he's just only Waterford's driver now.
I feel like the deep cover thing is probably better known. It's not just known by one person, but we also have no idea. But I'm also surprised they never followed up on that. So
well, I don't think he's
I don't know.
in deep cover insofar as he's accomplishing whatever he wants to accomplish. I just don't. I'm not saying he's full in on Gilead. I just don't think he's full in on anything.
Right.
So,
no,
yeah.
I agree. I see that. But
and maybe that'll change now that he got Eden killed, and then
right.
He really does have some regret about that. But in terms of Eden, I don't know.
Yeah.
I liked it, and then when that plot line was over, I was kind of like, oh, that's straight fan fiction. And it's fine, but it really is, it's the story of somebody else in Gilead that Margaret Atwood hasn't told us. And
right.
I enjoyed it a lot, actually, and I liked that. I liked what they did in terms of they made everybody think that she was gonna betray them, and then no, she's a 15-year-old girl who wants somebody to love her. Darn that bitch, yeah.
I really liked her storyline too. I find when June says find what love you can in this world, and she basically does, and she's the first generation of truly indoctrinated people into the Gilead kind of structure, and I don't
She's
know.
Not so indoctrinated. She had that Bible.
Eden is an interesting place. I almost kind of imagine her as I was 13 when 9/11 happened, so I very clearly remember both parts of the world before and after. Right. And I feel like Eden is probably in that generation also, where she knows how to read and write. She hasn't been raised not to, and she knows what the Bible is, but she's also experienced enough of Gilead to really to believe it, but also struggle with it. Which is, I almost wish they had highlighted that a little before she died. I think they maybe sacrificed some of that to the fact that they wanted people to be oh, she's going to betray them,
Right.
Yeah, it's sad because she is super devout and she is super loyal to Gilead, but she can't quite figure it out. You see all the scribblings on the Bible, she can't quite mesh the two systems of belief, and it's killing her. And she has been so indoctrinated, yet even after all that, she still falls in love with someone that isn't her husband. All of those desires are pushed down and pushed down and pushed down, but eventually they just come back up again.
Right. And she's 15, so she's got hormones raging. She's got,
Yeah.
And that's just what.
And you can't stop that.
It's so brutal to me because it's Nick had to do the bare minimum, I think, to keep her happy. I really think that I don't even think he really had to sleep with her. I get it. You don't want to sleep with a 15-year-old girl. I get it. I'm not faulting him for that. It's just that I think that kisses and your cooking is so delicious and I love those curtains. I really think that would have contented her at least for a while, and he's just incapable of giving her even that. So, and that I think is why she goes in search of something else. I mean, obviously, it's also ironic because Isaac is not like the greatest guy either. Like I think he like beats June at one point, and
No,
like
it's Janine, yeah.
oh yeah, he beats Janine. Like he's not the greatest guy. Like he's definitely in this Gilead thing too. But
Right.
but the fact that that's who she is drawn to because of that, like it's almost it doesn't matter what he believes about Gilead, right? It what matters is like he's interested in her cooking, and he's interested in these skills that she has, fostered to be the perfect, Econo wife, hopefully maybe a commander's wife at some point. So yeah, I don't know. I feel like it's a very pitiable storyline, and I hope it has more resonance, especially with the whole like, oh, her parents turned her in, and like bloody hell, like oh my god,
Yeah, I do like how her story brought out about like even how June is complicit in the oppressions of other women, of like just basically just convincing Nick to like actually consummate his marriage and say like I don't want to see you up on the wall, and oh boo-hoo, you're the only you're the only person who's had to have sex with someone he didn't want to. We have a word for that. And it is kind of amusing about how like a bit of a role reversal with how, Nick's survival is like, about like constantly appeasing this like person he didn't want to be married to in the first place in order to like, just like not get like turned into the eyes on suspicion of being a gender traitor, it's
Well, because I mean that to me very much when Eden was like, oh my god, what if he's a gender traitor? My initial thought was like, she's clearly been educated to believe that her husband should want to do absolutely nothing but fuck her constantly,
right? And she's like, she's probably also she's also clearly been raised to believe that like men are just like gonna pounce at any chance to have you on like like once they have the opportunity.
Well, they're supposed to. I mean, that's your duty to God, according to all that.
Right. And their rights as men, right? Like that's part of what, he's chanting, Fred is chanting when he's whipping Serena, right? Like that's all indoctrinated there. I will say one thing I did not like was the whole like hole in the sheet thing.
Oh yeah.
Wait, what was that?
Like a Mormon thing, right?
Yeah, well, I don't know if it's a Mormon thing, but I know it is a myth about Jews, and it is not true. And like, I've spent a long time online with people being like, "Oh, where did they get that from? Oh, Jews do that," and me being like, "No, they don't."
Wait, I'm confused. What were you saying? Because I'm Jewish too, and I'm not. What is this?
They when Eden and Nick do have sex, they do it through a hole in a sheet.
Oh,
right?
okay.
That fancy thing, and that's a myth.
Okay.
I don't know if Mormons do it. The fact that it's a myth about Jews makes me inclined to think that it's a myth about Mormons, but I don't know any Mormons, so
I've never even heard that. Okay.
Yeah.
It's like the special underwear and stuff that Mormons have.
I'm Googling hole in sheet sex.
Yeah, don't do that. That's gonna
enjoy that on your search history.
You realize the things that are going to show up in your like Google ads.
Yeah,
now.
you're definitely going to get the truth from Googling that.
I see
Google ads for the next week.
I just see Hasidic. I don't even see more. Oh, Mormons have marital relations through a hole in the sheet.
There you go. At least supposedly, according to Google.
Anyway. I could say a lot more about that. I'm not going to. Should we talk about Serena and Fred?
Absolutely.
All right.
I think Serena's one of the most interesting characters in the show.
Oh, absolutely.
Probably the most interesting.
Yeah, I think the season really spent most of its energy on character development on her.
Mm-hmm. I love how just every moment I don't know what to think about her. Like one moment I just think, oh, she's poor. Oh, that poor. Oh, I get this. And then I'm like, hate you. She does something awful because she just can't ever like just be good. Like she has to like, even like, within her religious stuff she has to do that. She always has to like be nasty. I mean, I think of her as like Cersei, but more complicated.
I was about to say, welcome to having sympathy for Cersei.
Right. I feel like she's like that, except that she's much more complicated. But the thing I find most interesting.
Well, she's also a genius. Like. Right.
Well, the thing I find interesting that's different is that unlike Cersei, she created the world that's oppressing her. She helped create it, which is the amazing thing, where in, a lot of female characters in oppressive societies are just the victim of it. She created this. She put herself in this situation.
So Serena is a back to the source material of, like Margaret Atwood wrote this in the 80s, and she's basically like a parody, like a doppelganger of like a Phyllis Schlafly type who, like in the 80s, like went around the country campaigning against the Equal Rights Amendment. And then
later about LGBT rights, but yeah.
So there is this line in the book, I forget the line entirely, but it was just like, how angry she must be to be taken at her own word.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, that's just Serena in a nutshell, and just of like where this comes from.
Well, I think she also epitomizes a lot of religious zealots in that they want to pick and choose which parts of the Bible they believe in. Like, I think she strongly believed in, the woman should be raising kids, and she strongly believed in a lot of the other religious stuff, but she didn't think that meant I can't give speeches, I can't have a role in government. Like, I don't think that part of it she expected people to take literally, because let's face it, whenever it comes to any part, we all see what we want when we read the Bible or whatever religious documents you believe in, and I think she did the same, just like I think everyone does. And well, unfortunately, others took it even more literally than she did, at least certain parts she didn't want to believe in. And then she got victim of exactly what she was doing to other people.
Yeah, took it seriously, not literally, huh?
Well, it's like an avalanche, right? She not only wants Gilead, she's so instrumental in creating it, but I think that like it gets away from her fairly quickly. I doubt that like every single, like there's a scene in the last season, the flashback, where she's like happily filling her closet with blue dresses and like this is like awesome, and then she's like, Fred, can I come to work with you? And like and he's like, no, you stay here. You're gonna do your part here. And like that clearly that's not, I genuinely don't think she intended for like girls not to be allowed to read. Like I think that there are things that she meant and things that she did not mean, but like you can't half-ass authoritarianism. You can't half-ass a system that's this discriminatory and unjust. Like it's especially with the people at the top who like exist to benefit from it.
I think you can half-ass it.
Mm-hmm. I think
it's just called something else.
Yeah, no, she'd been writing this tiger the entire time. I think like Fred's bros in the first season when they're like meeting and like taking over Capitol building, they never intended on her having a seat on the table in the first place. They might have found her useful during her book tour days,
but I don't think she realized that.
She did not realize that, because that's not part of her view, right? Her view is that we're serving God and everybody wants to serve God the right way, so they're going to listen to me. She's not factoring in the fact that these guys just want to get laid constantly and be able to do whatever they want to women. I think it's really fascinating to me how much has to happen to Serena, for her to like come to that point of starting to accept this. She hasn't even fully accepted it. She's just starting to accept it. Like she has to go through being, Fred being, taking over his job, being whipped because of that, watching Eden, who she has taken under her wing, betray everything that they believe in and then be killed because she sticks to her beliefs. And then she gets her finger cut off, and like.
But remember, she gets her finger cut off because she basically tries to make a major change to the government.
But she doesn't view it that way. She like doesn't think that she's doing anything radical, and that like, I mean, as both a like somewhat progressive and religious person, like you think like this is not a big deal, and then like the resistance to it is. You view it as so disproportionate, like nobody's cutting my fingers off, but like it is that kind of like, I don't know, I that resonated a lot with me.
Don't you? I find her almost like a cartoonish like stereotype of a woman who needs, like, her whole deal was that she wanted to have a child, and that's why she was going along with whatever absurd thing that Fred was doing and promoting that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, and isn't that just like?
I don't think it's not just for,
she believes
it's just, I don't think it's just for like, so she can have a child. I do get the impression that like from their flashbacks in the first and second seasons that pre-Gilead this was an actual functioning faith-based marriage, and yes, having children was a traditional setup like that was going to be a part of how she wanted everything, but it was also like praying with Fred before sex.
I think it's a bit of both. I definitely think she's a true believer that Gilead the world needs to be reformed and returned to this extreme religious setup. But I also think the underlying psychology is the baby. Like the fertility crisis is underlining her pathology. And she even says, in that old manner, I did all of this, I forewent all of these freedoms. I helped you get this power, and all I asked for was a baby, and you couldn't even give me that. And that's the kind of, I see her as such a monster, especially in the first season, but I do kind of sympathize with her in the second season at points, but I still hate her unremittingly just because of what she's done.
It's fair.
She is so unbelievably cruel. But yeah,
And that's the thing.
I mean, I see this show as a horror movie most of the time, and there's moments where she'll crawl into bed with June and whisper like "Mummy loves you," and rubs her stomach, and it is
shit, I forgot about that. You're
it
right.
is this chilling,
that was creepy,
monstrous moment, and she's trying to this delusion that she's having the baby, and she's got all of these outfits picked out, and she's miming the contractions while it's happening, and anytime anyone pricks that bubble, that delusion, she will just knock you out with a brick.
Poor Rita.
Or rape you.
She reminds me of I just started watching the Romanovs. Have you guys watched that at all?
Nope.
No, is it good?
Yeah, it's not bad. It's vignettes.
Yeah, I've heard mixed things.
Anyway, it's Matthew Weiner, so it's good. But there's this one scene where this older woman is just brutal. She's like, "How dare you come into my house late and smelling of testicles, and you're fired." And the guy's like, "Is that really necessary? Obviously, you've never had servants." Apparently, there's just some kind of.
Oh yeah, the old racist lady that thinks she's a royalty.
Yeah. But there's there has to be something where it's you have to make sure you're put in your place constantly, so that you're not only elevated above your Marthas and your handmaids, but and I think that creates that weird dynamic where she could be really touching and sweet sometimes, and then an awful bitch the next minute.
Right.
Well, she projects all of her rage for being oppressed and denied all of the freedoms that she had before. She projects it downwards. She doesn't project it at the men.
Right.
She projects it squarely at June and Martha.
But isn't that what most people do? I mean, in life, you always, you don't blame the people who are directly responsible. You take it out on, it's the kick the dog syndrome. Dad had a bad day, so he takes it out and yells at his wife, who beats the kid, or yells at the kid, and the kid kicks the dog. The youngest kids, that kind of thing.
That's what Gilead is hinged on, right? It's right. Of people being, and I mean, this is not new. This is the same thing happened in the Holocaust. The hierarchy in concentration camps was often Jews placed over other Jews because it's more powerful to place your own above and promise you a couple of extra benefits than it is to whatever. But I think all of this is why Serena is such a fascinating character. And part of it's just because Yvonne Strahovski is really, 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 really good in the role.
Yes.
I would never, honestly, I only know her from Chuck, and I never would have assumed that she was capable of this, and she's incredible.
Oh, she's great in Dexter too. She's
I haven't seen
fucking
Dexter.
Nutcase. It's great.
But because there's that core of I think we can, at least, I don't know, I, as a woman, feel like I can recognize part of what she is doing, and then also obviously completely not, and what she does is completely inexcusable. June has the temerity to not be in labor, and she's like, cool, rape now,
it's her casual cruelty that's so, she goes from being nice one moment to just, I'm going to be just out now. I mean, even if you were going to get, even if she was going to send June away, she didn't have to tell her, I need to let you know this because I want you upset. Just her casual cruelty. And I mean, obviously the rape and lots of other things too, but it's just every time you want to like her, she does something awful.
Yeah, I think there's this one scene where June says something that kind of asserts her power as I'm pregnant, you can't touch me, and
with the knitting needle.
That? And then no, she just smacks Martha.
Yes. Oh, that was awful.
Oh my god.
No, that was at the baby shower. So when she smacked Rita, it was at the baby shower. June mentioned, "Oh yeah, Luke and I just gave all our gifts away." It turns out like they just our guests gave us all this useless shit.
Well, that's the other thing they don't like to be reminded of, that there was a time before Gilead, and that there was all these people had lives beforehand, and they're all just playing
Oh my
dress
god, that awkward brunch with June, with the other handmaids and the Serena hosts for June.
It reminds her they're all just, to some extent, they're all just playing make-believe and dress-ups.
Well, it's not for
they're
June,
playing
it's for
make-believe and
Serena.
dress-up even about fertility, right? Because the whole thing is like, oh no, Serena, you're really the one who's pregnant here.
Yeah.
You're really the one who's having this baby. And like you can see that, like, I wouldn't say it's quite a delusion because I don't think she's full in on believing it, but like you can see the power of that extend to the fact that she tries to nurse the baby and it obviously doesn't work. And
that was great.
Like it was, and I think like what they do really well is that they show you all sides of her, and I think that is why like she works as a character, because she's not Aunt Lydia. We're not just seeing the horror side of her or the like, I will treat you kindly, my little pet, as long as you behave side of her. We see both the horror and like the twisted humanity and where that came from. And it's just really, really effective to me. It's honestly, she's one of the like best written characters on TV in a long time for me.
Yeah.
So anything else to say about Serena or Fred? I guess we haven't really spoken about.
We haven't talked about Fred at all.
Let's talk about Fred.
What's to say?
Fred sucks.
Let's see. He still gets off on this entire setup. Not surprised, but it's still there. He just like. I'm just thinking about that scene where, after June is returned to the Waterford household after being locked in that basement after running away. And, she has to perform this entire drawn out thing of like I'm just asking for a chance to be good,
right.
for, like with Waterford. And, it's just like,
what?
Oh, no. He is just like...
Everyone has to dance to his tune and appease him, and he loves it. And he's so confident that he can just keep resetting things, no matter how many tragedies and escape attempts and things happen. He can just wave a wand and say, "Oh, we're just gonna go back to things normal. I've missed you. Aren't you gonna play Scrabble with me tonight?" So I loved. He even tries it in like the last episode. So I loved it when June is like,
June is like
that sick grin on his face when he sees her walk in with him.
He's so confident, and she's like, "You know what, Fred? Go fuck yourself."
Right. Oh, one thing
one of the writers described him as, but he also has like this cowardly side to him. One of the writers described him as that guy will beat his wife and then like come back to her like the next day with like, a diamond bracelet or something, just and think that just makes up for it. You see that dynamic with him and Serena. He beats her and then takes her to Canada. He then with June, he just like viciously rapes her and then, lets her see Hannah.
Speaking of Canada,
everyone's the hero of their own story.
Yep.
One thing I forgot I wanted to say about Serena, though, since we mentioned the Canada there, is one thing I loved was the temptation of Serena, where first of all, the hot guy comes on to her, but then
CIA guy,
but then tempts her to like, you know what? Not only can you get away, but we'll give you a kid. We'll give you like she can have a kid. She can have
trip to Hawaii.
Freedom. She can be a leader in the government, a free trip to Hawaii, sleep on the beach and relax. But not just that, but you can have what you wanted with us. And it's interesting that, she plays a good game with him that of, you think I'd be tempted by that. Of course, you don't know me very well. I'm so committed to my government. But, she takes the matches. She thinks about it. You can see in her eyes. And that's one of the great things about this show in general is just how much you can see in the different actors and actresses' eyes, just how much she's tempted. She even keeps the matches till she gets home even. And then she throws them out. Then she throws it in the fire. But it's like, that was just one of my favorite moments with her in the whole series.
And
so why do you think she threw them in the fire? Do you think that she realized that she missed the boat, or
total destruction?
I don't know.
I think she has to pretend that offer was never made to her. I think she like couldn't have that exist in her, like because from her perspective also, she's still, June is still pregnant at that point. She's still getting her baby. Everything's going to be fine.
Yeah.
So I think that she feels really, really transgressive for even wanting to even considering that escape.
I think that's her mindset.
She'd take it now.
I think that's her mindset the whole time throughout all of the atrocities of Gilead. It's all going to be fine when I have my baby, and she gets the baby, and it's not fine.
Right.
I wonder if that trip happened now, she might take that temptation.
Oh well, yeah. I mean, now she's in such a different. I don't know where she's going from here, but
right. That I'm really looking forward to seeing.
Yeah. So in terms of Fred, we should probably speed up.
Oh no, just one more thing. It's just how much of her decision with to not defect is to look, this is the 21st century. There are all these cameras. She was filmed getting off the plane from Gilead. So even if she does take the offer, how long till she's identified? Even someone sees her relaxing on a beach in Honolulu and said, "Holy shit," because war criminal. Yeah, this is who she is, and you just can't go back from that.
And taking that offer would be admitting that everything you've done is wrong. You've destroyed your own country for nothing, and then you bailed. She's all in.
Which is what she's forced to recognize when she gives up the baby at the end, right?
Right.
That is, it is interesting that they do eventually put her in that position, and even in a way more powerful idea than then she decided to just bail. She doesn't bail, she stays, but she gives up the thing that she was going that made this all worthwhile for her, which is a very, very powerful. I mean, to me, that was the most powerful. Forget June not going in the van.
Yeah.
Serena giving up the baby was the most powerful part of maybe the whole season.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that was very powerful.
What I found interesting about Fred and Serena's trip to Canada was to see a powerful white couple treated they're from the former third world, global south kind of country where everything they say is kind of backwards and primitive and they're looked down upon. And it was just weird to see that dynamic because, quite frankly, most of the dynamic is black and brown people being looked down on. But to see this powerful white American couple being oh yeah, that's how you do it. Yeah, that's great for you.
And we can put a pin on the Canada discussion because there's a lot of geopolitics to unpack here about how they were treated.
Well, one other thing about the Canada trip that I thought was interesting was how, as much as they believe all their religious stuff that they do, they know that they're lying about these women. I mean, as much as they might want to convince themselves it's for the good of them and all that, they know that all these things that they're saying about these women is true. It fundamentally is true. And they're just totally fine lying to the cameras, lying to everyone. You raped my wife. Oh, you must be confused. That moment when what's his name? When Luke confronts him is just so powerful, and he's just totally cool with it. And I think morally he thinks he's totally right in all of this, and so does she. And I think was one of the power of all those.
Oh well, Fred thinks he's morally right 100% of the time.
Right, of course.
Serena, it's maybe 90% of the time.
Right.
Fred is he's asleep and he wakes up and he's I am morally right.
Right.
I mean, he is, and I actually really like what they did because I think in the first season they were playing that line of okay, you sort of feel bad for Fred. Maybe he's just a cog in the system.
Right.
And then they're no.
He's a leader.
Is the worst.
Right.
He's terrible.
But they are sort of. The handmaids are sort of conditioned to play the part pretty well at the Red Center. In the first season, she's essentially doing and saying all the right things. And it appears, I guess, from Fred. I mean, they know it's coerced and all that. But it seems she's doing it willingly. She's offering her body so that the human race can continue. And that's the sort of lie they tell themselves.
Right.
So when Luke charges at him and said, "You raped my wife," and then we see Moira and it says, "My name is Moira," it sort of shatters that little play that he's been playing in his head. I think.
But it doesn't really shatter it, I think. He totally is cool with it, I think. And that's the thing that's, everything about him. It's interesting how when it comes to anyone else, all the rules are important. Like, even his wife, like she has to lose a finger. Anyone else has to pay for the party line. But when it's him, I can go and, fuck my handmaid in the hotel brothel thing. And that's okay because, or we can break the rules when it's me because, that's different. It's the ultimate privilege, right?
Right.
The rules apply to everyone but me.
The key to Fred, honestly, to me, is how I think he just basically constantly exists on a spectrum of June wants to fuck me, June doesn't want to fuck me. And that is everything he does is kind of designed to move the dial back toward fuck me, and when he thinks that will happen because he's being nice to her and giving her a picture of Hannah, then that's what he does. When he thinks he just has to take what he wants, he slaps her. I think that he's intentionally so driven by his lusts to a very clear. I mean, he gets turned on when he watches her, her milk come in, and when they have that meeting when the baby's there, you can see it in his face. They're doing this on purpose, and I think that he is maybe the most animalistic of the cast for that reason, and it's not a good look, but it's there for a reason.
And from the male perspective, that is the whole point of Gilead, to strip women of rights and then offer them treats in exchange for obedience.
Here's an interesting thing about Fred. I don't know if you've all heard that they were originally planning in one of the I think it was episode 9 or 8 or somewhere around there that Fred was supposed to rape Serena Joy.
Yeah, that was supposed to be during the Canada trip.
Was it during? Okay.
It was supposed to be. It didn't happen.
Right, and then he actually and Joseph Fiennes actually really strongly argued against it for days, talked to the writers and producers and argued why his character wouldn't do this and why he didn't think that was right and he didn't want him going that far and won in the end. And I wonder how that would change it. I wasn't clear when it was supposed to be, if it was supposed to be in Canada or if it was supposed to be when he beats her with the belt. I wasn't sure when it was, but either way, it's interesting to consider that the writers thought this is what the character would do, and does that change the character at all? And the fact that they ultimately listened to him, does that change him at all either? I don't know.
I mean, it's hard to argue counterfactuals. I think that probably
he could be more the worst.
Right. I think he would have. I can imagine the character doing that, but from an artistic perspective, I think it's probably showing us something that we don't need to see. I don't actually think that they have sex.
That was my next question.
Yeah.
They had sex once in season 1, and that was just implied to be the first time in a long time.
Yeah.
And they have sex in the flashbacks, and they're very loving and close to one another. And the reality that we see is they're very cold and distant. So a lot of the passion in their marriage is gone, despite having achieved all of these goals and supposedly setting up this utopic white picket household. It's totally unfulfilling and isolating
for everyone.
And
for everyone.
For everyone except for the men.
Well, I think it also I think that also would have made things too easy for Serena.
Yeah.
Because it's really they push her pretty far as far as it goes. I mean, losing even a part of your pinky is a huge freaking deal, especially when it's your husband's idea. I think that the rape would have been too much. I think that was actually a good call.
And I think the rape of June was horrific and unwatchable.
Yeah.
But it was powerful because, one, they were both complicit in it, and two, it made what was always implicit explicit, because it was always rape. It was always rape, but now they had to confront the fact that she's not doing it meekly and passively. She's struggling against them, and they're continuing.
I mean, even Serena says it. We raped her.
Yeah.
This
Yvonne Strahovski, she said something really interesting, which I thought was honestly very telling. She said that scene was just really difficult for her to film, period, but also she's never in that position as being the active participant in a rape, as a female, as a female actor.
Right.
And like she was like, this is just like her brain was all like confused because yeah.
So my last thought about Fred is that he has a boss study, and I want it.
But what are you willing to do to get that boss study?
I bet you hasn't read a single
Play
one
Scrabble.
of those. He hasn't read one of those books.
Right.
Yeah.
They're all
Who
still in there rapping like Great Gatsby.
Who will you play Scrabble with to get that?
Yeah. Whoever I have to.
About the two of them, both of them, is how realistic do you think it is that both of them accept her, bring her back? I mean, yeah, they're going to get the kid anyways, but take her back into the household after the first escape and accept the whole fiction of, oh, yeah, she was kidnapped. I mean, everyone they know that wasn't true.
It's a face-saving measure.
Yeah.
It's just one more lie that they buy into. Like, they're so deep into it. So, I don't think it's an issue.
It's the
It's a polite fiction so long as June plays along, and that's all it is.
Right.
I mean, I think to be fair, it's also the fact that the show does have June has a very long, leash, that she maybe shouldn't have. But because I mean, if I were Serena and Fred, like I would have her possibly executed or at least sent far, 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 far away, like the second she had the kid, and get breast milk from somebody else because there's a lot of moms in Gilead. So I do think that like that's a little inconsistent on the show's part.
Right, but that would be the second handmaid who's tried to escape or killed herself.
Or just keep her in a basement and milk her. I'm surprised they don't just do that.
Well, they tried that.
They did, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess it's true.
Gross.
Well,
But then, the real reason she's brought back is not because she can nurse the baby. The real reason she's brought back is because she can turn Fred on, right?
Right.
Like that's really the reason.
That's fair.
Yeah. Haven't mentioned Fred's the worst.
Yeah.
He's not great.
Yeah. But kudos to Joseph Fiennes because it's a tough Joseph Fiennes?
Yes.
Yeah, it's a tough role and he does it really well.
Mm-hmm.
So Emily, moving on to Emily, is my favorite character. I think in the whole thing.
Smash my heart into a million pieces. Her episode, it focuses just on her.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, honestly, I watched that episode as a screener and I was like, I'm not part of the LGBT community, and I was like, I'm triggered. Like,
Right.
This episode needs to, it's a little redundant because it's a Handmaid's Tale, but like seriously, this episode is like, holy shit! Like when she's, the lynching of her fellow professor, and then also the scene at the airport is unbearably.
Yeah.
Oh my god. And like just the whole slow process of like, okay, you're getting there, and then like, and we have our marriage certificate, we got all the papers, and then they're like, no, this is not, you're not married. This isn't.
And it was just from a directive that we got we just got off the phone from getting this instruction.
Yeah.
And and can I just say, as an LGBT person, that is really something that resonates right now because you know what? Gay marriage, the legal underpinnings for that right now are Roe v. Wade. And as much as we can also lose Roe v. Wade, we could lose that too. So people could be unmarried soon in this country, which is scary.
Yeah, or even, honestly, Kennedy was the swing vote on Lawrence versus Texas. So
right.
It's yeah.
No, don't worry. People won't be unmarried. They can take away a right. They can just
in some
refuse to
states,
move forward.
It depends on in some states they will be. I think in the South and a lot of states people will be. I don't want to get into a long conversation about this, but it really, I think, absolutely can and will happen, unfortunately.
Yeah. And I think people No, and I had to, I did have to get on the phone when, the news about Kennedy retiring broke about, a friend of mine who's, in a same-sex relationship, but is originally is living in the United States, but is originally from a country that, just criminalizes homosexuality, and that she's, felt like, I had to tell her as a fellow, person in the alphabet soup, was just look, this is the long-term prognosis. I don't blame you if you make your life plans in a country that will be more receptive to this, because as an American, it's up to me to change it, but you don't have to live this way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, like on a sidebar note, like the Handmaid's Tale official Facebook group is like an epic garbage fire.
Oh no.
And with pretty frequent regularity, you'll have people go like, "Why are we talking about politics? Can't we just talk about the show?" It's like the show's not political.
This show wears its politics on its sleeve, you know.
Yeah, it's like I don't know, you know, like.
I mean,
all right.
It's not even really speculative. I mean, it is speculative, obviously, but the societies exist like this around the world. The fact that it's American isn't that far of a... Well, I mean, even in American history, even in Western civilization history, societies like this existed. It didn't come out of nothing.
Actually, this is a good point to bring this up. So, when constructing the universe, Margaret Atwood famously said, I didn't include anything that hasn't happened throughout human history.
Right.
So... how do people feel about, putting this in, or about like exploring these topics, but within like a white ethno-state, or with, within The Handmaid's Tale, they're trying to paper over the racism issue, but.
Yeah, so with the racism issue, it's still underlying, but because of this, again, the fertility crisis is really what they base everything on.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like that's a tricky topic, but I think that the point is really that like Gilead, in terms of race, I don't know, it is a really, really, really complicated thing, and I don't begrudge anyone for being like they totally fall down on this, because the cast is mostly white people, and the people of color actually got a lot less screen time this season. But like I still think that like they were just in a tough position with the book. And like, at least I prefer it to be like, oh no, there's a black commander, and like his wife is pregnant, and like we have black and handmaids and other handmaids of color. We could see more of them. That'd be nice. Like. Well,
I was more referring to like how these issues are like explored with like a mostly white cast, but also like given like the rip from the headlines nature of the world, like child marriage has happened. Or like around the entire
it still happens
world, it still happens around the world, and it still happens in the United States. But like for like a practice like FGM, I think we can say that it exists more often in some places than others.
Right. And
how like at some point there has been criticism of the show that this is just like it's just trivializing things that people are currently going through. By basically like whitewashing it in terms of casting.
Oh, jeez.
So you mean they're not dealing with the ethnic tensions or the racial tensions in America the way they are? I'm
not entirely sure I'm tipping my hand a little bit here, but like I don't exactly agree with a lot of the criticisms. I think Atwood's point in doing the like whatever has happened in human history thing is more about a point of how it has happened in societies that people consider more "quote unquote" progressive in the 21st century. It has.
Sorry.
This is kind of a matter of it could happen anywhere.
Yeah. I think between the book and the show, one very telling difference is that I remember in season 1 they said we didn't stop them when they blew up Congress. And the book I remember is when the Islamic terrorists blew up Congress. And I think that's part of the show trying not to get into that drawing the lines. And I feel like in this season they did with the baker who had the Quran hidden under his bed. That there is.
The book was a false flag attack that they blamed on.
Right.
Yeah, they did. Yeah, that's what they. Yeah.
But I feel like in this season that they did tackle it, and where it is, Jews, Muslims, any other religion other than this, Christian, theocracy that they set up is also, illegal under that system.
I actually have a question about the theology in there. Do they ever mention Jesus? Like, they're selective.
Right? I don't.
No, like Aunt Lydia and June have that quote battle about the Sermon on the Mount, but that's it.
Right.
Yeah. So, and that was a big part of what's her name, Eden's, questions about the Bible, because like you could pick and choose whatever you want out of the Bible. I think it's a sin to take a poop, like technically, but it contradicts itself in so many ways that you can't. I mean, it's a fucking fairy tale, guys. Come on.
I mean, well,
and just last half of YouTube.
as the religious person, I sort of felt like it was really interesting what the show, why, like the fact that the show is very vague on that, and I mean to like as part of the fiction, I think, is that like Gilead is also very vague on that. Like I think like they're inventing Bible verses also. They're not like like they're not evangelical Christians in the sense that we would recognize them. I think that it's also the religious stuff that they touched on early in the season was interesting to me because I actually felt that was very predictable. Because like in the second episode, June has that like prayer. She starts to pray when she sets up that little shrine by the wall at the Boston Globe.
Ugh, that was brutal.
And that's very Christian. Well, that was awful. That was very Christian in tenor. And then the next episode, she's under the bed and she finds the Quran and the prayer rug, which I actually thought was like super super rude of her. To be like,
oh yeah,
people's stuff.
Just leave it, put it back.
Right, like it would have been effective enough to see like, and she's also kneeling in front of it. Like the way they framed it was like too on the nose for me. Like she could have just seen the word Quran written like under the in the thing written under the bed, and that would have been totally sufficient for me. And then the next episode in the colonies, you have the rabbi, who's doing the marriage and the funeral rites. So like I don't know, it was a little. It seemed to me like they were like check,
Right.
It's like hashtag not all religions.
Yeah.
Right.
Really like a meaningful way of at least we got to meet the rabbi, but like she wasn't like a character. Sort of back and forth because like the Muslim family were characters, but like we didn't get to address their religion, and then the female rabbi wasn't really a character, but we did get to address her religion. So I don't know.
Yeah, and I feel like part of the reason they don't want people, or at least women, reading the Bible is because they don't want them reading all of the other parts of the New Testament that probably contradict a lot of this. Like they picked one quote from the Bible.
I don't think the Bible is inherently woman strong anyway.
Right.
Right. Okay,
well, like I think there is like a broader point about just like anti-female education. The like that guy in who's just like totally dismissive of Serena that Fred meets with in the Capitol is just like like we're not gonna make the same mistake and let them get all wrapped up in their careers and education.
Right.
Like this is just like pure baby factory time. And there is some
how dare they do anything
that, like educating girls is a like strong or it is a big predictor of how many children a woman will have.
Which actually makes me think of an interesting point I was thinking when I was watching this. Like, okay, so women are supposed to be just a baby factory, right? Except that, I don't know, 90-something% of them are sterile now, or so, we're supposed to believe that it's the women's fault, of course. Not
allegedly.
Right. So, but if we assume that's their belief, whether it's true or not, we don't know. If that's the case, then if they're not actually going to be baby factories, and they're not allowed to work, what are they all supposed to do? Just knit?
Take walks, go grocery shopping.
I mean,
well, I think
like the women who don't have babies. Like it's interesting that we have like, I mean, what is Serena's real role in the world now?
Well,
I mean,
to your point, David, the episode where, what doctor did they get? Like a prenatal,
right.
Specialist,
neonatologist.
Right.
She's now a Martha. Yeah,
and so it's just a waste of resource and I don't understand.
Right, and then like Emily's a molecular biologist at either like Harvard or MIT, and then like.
But at least in Emily's case, she can have babies, so she can be a baby factory. I mean, I'm not saying it's good. I'm just saying from their point of view. But what is the point of taking someone who could be a doctor who could help save these babies, and instead we're having her like mop the floor and cook dinner? Like I don't.
The irony is that the very thing that they're supposed to stay home for is not there. But I guess
they can do it.
In their warped mind, I guess they think that God is punishing them for stepping outside their biological destiny and having careers. So if you put them back on the home, then God will grant them fertility again or something like that.
Yeah, I don't.
Also, it's just about goes back to the discussion in the first VOC about this of why not just have these women in a dormitory and artificially inseminate them with a turkey baster and give them an actual financial incentive to do that, it's, it's still a violation, but like, you can, you could.
Right. The system
can
does not
take a
need
lot
to
of
be
the cruelty
predicated
out
on
of
male domination, but they do it anyway.
Well, because that's the way the males want it.
Right.
Right,
Exactly.
right. I mean, I think.
I mean,
that's
a lot of this, I think there's a certain amount of like, the world is very detailed and it is thin. It's a little see-through in some places. Like, I still don't really understand what the point of wives are, other than
No, they are
right,
going to
exactly. That was my
raise the
point.
children. It's just of
Well, but the confusing thing is, like, if the women that can have the babies are like blessed by God, right, by their idea, then why aren't they being elevated to wives?
Well,
Right.
I think the answer to that is because if they do, they're not going, unless they're going to have they have to raise, they want them to focus on the baby. Like, the wife is going to focus on this baby, and then the handmaid gets sent to another family, so we can spread. So we have like one family raising
right,
a baby.
I mean,
she's just going to keep pumping out babies.
The simpler
But
answer is
what
they
have the
want
wives
someone who's
done?
indoctrinated,
Like, what have the wives to deserve that? We know what the handmaids have done.
The wives have been docile and they just go with it. So.
Well, I think the wives
wives
were still
are-
in Gilead 1.0, so like they're pre-existing relationships where they were probably married before Gilead was created, so they had to be
Right.
fine.
right, and also
But it's just
still
their
treated
logic
as like
seems to-
a slight, or it is still treated as like a slight upon Serena's womanhood to have to require a handmaid in the house. She is, and that commander is, did get promoted to being a commander because he actually successfully knocked his wife up. So.
And you see the expression on Fred's face when he hears that, and like, it's just like, I don't know. I mean, to a certain extent, I think the ridiculousness is the point. Like, the more distracted everybody is by these, and that's how all societies work, right? Like, every society is preoccupies people with things that aren't important because that's just the way things work. But I think in Gilead, it's important to have that distraction. Just to zoom back to Emily for a sec.
Right. Which is what we were talking about.
Poor Emily.
The conversation started with.
Abandoned in the
poor
colonies.
Emily. Oh my God. Well, I mean, to me, like, her experience in this season is so fascinating because, like, at first you're like, okay, well, she's screwed. She's going to die. She's in the colonies. And then, like, Janine shows up like this, like, almost phantasm of hope that's like, how are you actually here?
Right.
And then the fact that, like, I don't know, just to me, the fact that her arc, like, climaxes in stabbing Aunt Lydia.
Yep.
And her reaction to that, which is like exhilaration and joy, and I've wanted to do this forever, and then, like, holy shit, I'm a monster.
But she didn't kill her. Like, if you're gonna go a whole hog, like, do it, man. Stab her in the fucking throat.
Well,
like, I was so mad that she didn't, like, just, like, she had already made that break and had done something so, ridiculously, she's gonna get punished, like, severely. Like, go all out and take her out. Like, I
think she thinks she did. I think she thinks she did. And then she freaked out at the consequences. But I mean,
also the Martha, like, came in pretty quick. I don't think she really had time to go back
finish
down
the job.
stairs.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And we were clearly building to this. I mean, because when she murders the wife in the camp there, like, that was powerful. I actually didn't see that coming, and I really liked it because it was really dark for her, and that was a really neat scene and awful too.
And
like, even our heroes
are
doing awful things just to be cruel,
And the whole time Emily is just like, she has that experience of, like, oh, I'm not my son's mother anymore. He doesn't remember me. Like, she's losing all of her connections to, like, the things that even keep June alive. And June's like, well, at least your son is in Canada, not being raised as a handmaid to be, in like this hellscape. So it was a very interesting kind of back and forth, like, what kind of motherhood has it worse in that case, but I don't know. I found the whole, like, she's not in a whole bunch of the season, but, like, every time she was there, I was like, it felt like something really important was going on, like, from the beginning with her killing the wife who comes to the colonies, by pretending to be her friend of all things, and just that whole path, and then, like, you see her completely unexpected. That's also part of the reason the end worked for me, because Emily was in the van, and it was this completely unforeseen redemption, and Emily has no way of knowing what's going to happen. And then, like, not only are you going to Canada, you're bringing June's baby with you, and you have this extra responsibility. It was all really, really fascinating to me. And I don't think, like, I don't expect to see Emily in a good place next season, but it'll at least be nice that she'll be in Canada. You know?
Assuming she gets away.
I think they will.
I would hope. I mean, I would hope, but you never know.
I don't know. I was just a little bit like annoyed because people on one of the Facebook groups I'm in were like, you know, the baby's gonna die. Nobody in the car can nurse. I'm like, I googled it. Okay, it's an 8-hour drive from Canada, from Boston to Toronto, and they're not even going as far as Toronto.
I think this is the first time we see the colonies, and they're like nightmarish. But I thought the wedding between the two. What are they? Are they handmaids? I thought that was the lesbian wedding. I think
they were on women. Well, they're all on women now.
Yeah,
in the colonies.
I thought that was nice, and it was like a nice sort of finding hope in these dire circumstances. And I think it was the same episode that we had the marriage between Nick and Eden and all that. So it was sort of a nice contrast for like the sort of polish of that, but it was all obviously hollow. Whereas this is sort of this loving moment between these two people who were going to die, but at least they found this one sort of morsel of happiness. And I was wondering, do you guys think, you know, in that flashback with the college student, do you think, which she sort of defends her against like some guy who was trying to mansplain science to her or whatever, do you think she was the one who ratted her out about having
it felt like it.
her family on her phone?
It felt like that's what they were going for. Yeah. Which is great, which is awful.
I thought that was interesting because it's almost like this critique of like different groups sort of working that are sort of oppressed in different ways, almost working across cross purposes to each other.
Which happens. It happens a lot.
Yeah. Like failing to make common cause with one another.
Right. You see that a lot. Like there's a lot of racism in the LGBT community. There's a lot of sexism in it and vice versa. Yeah. You know, like I grew up Jewish and, you know, my grandmother was really racist and, you know, there's a lot of all.
Like patriarchy triumphs because it sort of turns all the other groups against them.
Right. And even on, you know, like a micro level of like there's no like cross like group things. There's like, you know, June, you know, insisting that Nick consummate his marriage with Eden. It's like, okay, maybe she thinks she wants it, but like, you know, this is still like, you know, really sketch.
Right.
And we get the I forget his name, but her senior professor kind of talking about, I thought I was going to be the last of the people who had to deal with this.
Yeah,
like,
that was powerful.
Welcome to the fight. And she sees him lynched. So that idea that like homophobia and racism and sexism, you think it's going to die out, but then it suddenly reemerges, particularly with a crisis. Like everything.
That reminded me of
that was like, me.
You know,
that was me in that scene. That was my thinking right there. And me today, seeing this, like how I'm thinking, like what's happening in the world today, because I want to be the last generation to deal with this, and it's clearly I'm not.
Oh my god!
Yeah, it reminded me of the women's marches that occurred right after Trump's inauguration, where it's like, you know, there's old women's like, why am I still protesting this shit?
Right.
Exactly.
All of these like neo-Nazis on YouTube. Like I thought racism was slowly going to like die out in the past generation, and
they came out of nowhere.
They've come back with a vengeance. It's insane.
Well, it goes back to what you were saying earlier, Duncan, about disenfranchised white males, you know.
Right.
Get over it.
Yeah.
That's a much longer conversation that we don't have time for now. But one thing I wanted to say about Emily, though, one thing I felt like as much as we were looking, you know, we needed to get them back into the main story, unless they were just going to, you know, Emily and Janine were just going to rot away in the, you know, in working. But the whole idea of like, wait, we have one terrorist attack and we lose 20 or 30 handmaids or however many it was. So now suddenly the entire country is so short that we have to pull them back from like the toxic wasteland we left them in.
Yes.
Like, are the handmaids that? I mean, it's not really clear how much of how limited they are. Are there 100 or there 1,000 or there 1,000,000 in the country? Because remember, we're only in Boston. We're only seeing one city in America. And so one terrorist attack happens and we suddenly have to pull all the ones that we decided were so bad that even though they were our baby making machine, that we're still going to send them to die. Which, you know, should they have done that in the first place? But now we're going to call them back. Oh, yeah. And with all the like toxic radiation in their body, that's going to be great for those babies.
Yeah, that was kind of confusing. But I mean, like the only explanation I can come up with is that like they are, you know, like they're still under like all these crippling sanctions from basically any other country in the world. So like there's just like a crazy like fuel shortage, and that like, it's probably just a proximity thing. And
Part
also,
of it-
there must not be a month where, every commander must get laid every month at least.
Right.
Right.
That's a
I
dream.
I think that part of it is like an act on the writer's part, but part of it is
Yeah.
also like Gilead doesn't make that much sense. Like
Right. A lot of it.
it's okay. Like it's stupid, and it's all about ultimately keeping these guys' private parts happy. So
Right.
like at the end of the day, it's okay for me that things aren't 100% logical.
Especially when you consider that it's only been around a few years, so it hasn't had time to kick out those illogicalities.
Yeah.
Right. I will say that, the colonies were mentioned in the book, but, we never saw them. So, they might not have existed in the book.
Yeah.
Right. It was like she went to the colonies like my dog went to a farm upstate.
And on the flip side, we also, part of the deal with the handmaids is that, do this for us and carry a healthy child to term, and you will never go to the colonies.
Yeah.
I was in
do
the
this, complete your time without delivering a healthy child. That's where you're going. But we also, in the book, Gilead is new enough that we don't see anyone. We don't have any proof of anyone or Gilead following through on either end of that bargain.
Right. I felt like, in the first season, I was wondering if the colonies really existed because, remember in the Holocaust, the Germans believed, or at least, the common people convinced themselves to believe that the Jews were just being sent to a better place, to another place. They're just sending them away. They didn't know what the camps really were. And so I was wondering if that was where they were going with this, but they didn't. But I was wondering if there was a little planned, ambiguity there.
I think with any of that kind of self-delusion is about more focused on, how like the Econo people think about the handmaids, about how that Econo wife says, I just can't, she just like blurts out, I can't believe you'd give up your kid like that. And June's like, I'm trying not to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then like she just like, and then like the wife immediately apologizes. Like she was like really trying not to blurt that out, but she did.
Right. Oh, one other question I had is, why is Janine the only handmaid who gets to keep her real name? Why isn't she of whoever?
She still is. I think it's just what the writers just went with.
Yeah, even Lydia calls her Janine, which doesn't make any sense.
Because Lydia and Janine have a special relationship that I don't think.
Teacher's pet.
She is teacher's pet. She's also like, she's just pet, period. Yeah. I don't know. Has anyone read The Wheel of Time?
No.
Not.
So in one of the books, I think I stopped around book 11, but in one of the early books, they have a system where like the people with magic are like chained by like this literally like collar and leash, and that allows somebody else to cause them pain and also channel their magic. So the people become basically like pets. And they're very docile, and like that's the ideal person. And to me, it like felt very much like that in terms of Janine has been trained to Lydia's satisfaction, and like obviously there's more going on there because there is more going on there. But I think that's why
she was like of Warren, right?
Yeah. She was at Warren, and then she went somewhere else and freaked out.
It's just sort of like she's messed up and like whatever, just let her go. She's the odd one.
It's like the success story. We'll let it. I don't know.
Right, and then there is that, right? Because like in the first season, it only comes up in context of like, they'll allow June to call Janine when she's talking her off the bridge.
Right.
This is an acceptable case of we will forgive you. Like actually bringing up the before times and. Talking about this, but just in the second season they just kind of drop that. Partially because the first time we see her, it's in the colonies, but when she comes back, it's still just Janine.
That's where it bothered me.
So guys, I gotta take off. I just wanted to say that for the number 6 on the Unnerving Parallels to Our Reality, I do drive past the Boston Globe building every day, and they recently started deconstructing their parking structure, and it really hit me when watching the show and like then seeing like a crane like kind of destroying part of the building that it wasn't too far off of what could happen, especially if people start believing that the press is the enemy of the people.
Right.
And with that, I will say, also, What really when the
Any more Boston references, just let it rip.
Yeah, when the dean
I was
on
gonna
with
too,
the
actually.
F word written below it, it was like only 10, 15 years ago that they used to have N words go home on L Street Beach in South Boston.
Where I live.
There's a reason why, David Che was like, it's the most racist city that I've ever been to. It still exists. We're trying to do better, but it's not going to change overnight.
It's a lot better.
All right, Matt. Are you ready to put this whole colony in your rear view?
Yeah.
We'll know the show was Jump the Shark next season if June drops some Wicked everywhere.
Wicked
Drop fuck at 8, son. Let's go. All right, guys. It's been great talking to you.
All right, thanks, Matt.
Yeah.
Bye, Matt.
All right, so just to wrap up quickly,
the Globe did tweet out after that episode aired, just like, guys, we're okay.
Yeah.
Quick thing, just because it's something I wanted to say, I might as well bring it up now. It is interesting though, like the Boston thing, because it's like it's not clear where they live. Like we know that she grew up in Brookline, she lived in Brookline before, but it's like where are they now? Because they drive a long time when she escapes. She's hiding in the Back Bay, where I used to live, by the way, and there's no place that had there literally is no place in the Back Bay that has a factory that big that she could have been in. But regardless of that, it's weird to me though, living in the city, how I can't picture any idea of where they would be. I mean, it's got to be a suburb or something, but it's not at all clear to me what they're going for. And in fact, the whole how we've gone to this little neighborhoods, are people living in the cities? What's going on in the cities? It's not clear.
Yeah, I believe in the book there is an allusion that to Professors Rowe in Cambridge. So it could definitely be Cambridge, at least in the book. Mm-hmm. But yeah.
Well, so just to wrap up, sorry guys.
Sorry, go back.
Maybe we can have a part 2 at some point. I was just wondering if we could go around having and give some predictions for next season, because we're coming back, guys.
Right.
So, also one thing, Hulu, I know, has started dropping some of their shows, all in one go. And I'm praying that they don't do that with this, because I cannot handle it. I can't do it.
I survived it. I survived it.
I know you survived it, David, but you're an anomaly, okay?
I know.
Yeah, no, you got to pace yourself.
I know. I would have if I could have. Actually, the first season I watched over a week, so. But in any case.
I just want Janine singing Dolly Parton songs to her baby for the whole season.
There you go. That would be fun. I mean, I guess one thing I've been looking for, and it's interesting because every one of these dystopian future shows or current or whatever always have a resistance. And it's interesting that on almost every show, book, whatever we get a real focus on our main characters are almost always in the resistance or join the resistance. And I'm wondering if that's where we're going now. Because it was interesting to me that we had it in here, and I thought that's where they were going in the first season, and then we never went there, which I thought was really fascinating. It was a different kind of view than what we usually see in this kind of fiction. And I'm wondering if that's what we're going to get next year. And I originally really, really wanted it, and now I'm not sure I do.
Back to what I said about, we were talking about the comic book style of the ending. I'll watch a few of the episodes, but I'm not entirely sure about, whether they've just, with taking this turn of the story, they're just they're kind of sacrificing about what made The Handmaid's Tale so relevant, important, even with within the genre itself, in terms of not, turning this into an epic struggle, it's just a description of life, and, offered the book character admitting, I am just a complete coward, and I didn't want to, I didn't protest when the time was right, and stuff like that. So I'm not entirely sure. I'll give it a chance, but I also don't have many predictions in terms of season 3. Sorry.
I really don't have any predictions either. It's hard to figure out where it can go, because I feel like it can't go back to what it was, obviously, because she can't go back into that household, or I hope she doesn't.
That would be weird.
But to transition into this kind of rebellion storyline where, she joins up with the militia and tries to retake the capital or something, that just seems so far away from what this story has been. I wouldn't, even though I love the show, I kind of wouldn't mind if it had ended at the end of season 2. I guess I can imagine her maybe going into like another. So I guess the goal is to get Hannah back. Maybe if Hannah is in a different city, maybe she has to like reintegrate herself somehow back into a different family, and that's where it starts. But she's more actively participating in the Mayday operations and the Martha operations and trying to communicate with Canada or something like that. But other than that, I'm not sure.
Yeah, I just don't see I don't see how she goes on to any of that. That's kind of the main problem I had with the ending of the season, is that if she had hopped on the bus with them and said, okay, drop me off somewhere, whatever, but she's just, not that far from the commander's house, really no connections, nowhere to go except back to his house, which, she just gave away the kid. This can't end well. There's no way that she, is secretly, somehow covertly getting stationed, next to her daughter to try to rescue her. None of it makes sense. So I do feel like they're just sort of going to go back to business as usual, which is unfortunate. I hope they don't. Other than that, maybe they do a time skip.
Yeah.
Right. Again, back to the ending. Part of what makes it so frustrating is that June knows Hannah's assumed name now. That if she got out and hired the Canadian mob to smuggle her out, they know who to look for now.
But how'd they be able to get in and get her? That's the thing.
I don't know, but at least they actually know who they're looking for now, right?
You would think her best chance would be right now. Hey, before anyone realizes what's going on, get me close and try to get her daughter that night. Which I don't think she'll end up doing. So
it's miles and miles away. She doesn't even know where it is, really. She was just smuggled in a car somewhere. She didn't know where she was going.
Yeah, but there's a Commander Mackenzie who's very high-ranking.
Maybe. Yeah, that's true.
See, I kind of think they're going to strike some kind of balance between the badass, rebellion, underground thing and the Gilead part. I definitely agree that she can't go back to the Waterfords, and I don't want her to go back to the Waterfords because that would just strain all credulity, at least for me. But I sort of think that she might either escape to or maybe be assigned to Emily's commander.
Maybe
Commander Ambiguous, basically, and get in, because he's got something going on that we still don't really know.
But so how do they get behind not killing her for treason, basically, right? Well, is this just another Commander Waterford's terrorists kidnapped my baby?
Well, that's what I was wondering. I'm afraid they'll do that. I could see them easily deciding, okay, first of all, we have Serena, who's now sort of on her side, so what if they said that this was, clearly that fire was a distraction, and during all of this, some terrorists came in and stole the baby, and Serena says she saw them and she screamed or whatever, and says...
And June heroically fought them.
And or something, it isn't what we want.
And the terrorists themselves wrote "No lite te bastardes carboruntorum" on June's wall.
Well, they don't know what that. They don't know that no one in that house is going to understand. The relevance.
That's Fred will, but other than that,
right?
Because she asked Fred about that.
That's true.
Yeah.
So I just think it's funny if they didn't cover up that evidence.
Yeah. I feel like they want those characters to interact, and that's why she's going back. Exactly. That's what I feel like.
That's my point. How else would we see Serena and Fred? And I can't see them getting rid of them because they're such good characters, especially Serena. So unless she joins the underground now too, which would be a little stereotypical, but I could see happening.
I don't know. I agree. Obviously, a lot of the heart of the show is invested in the Fred, June, Serena triangle for sure. But I also think that I don't know. They could pull it off. Obviously, they've been skilled with doing things that I've been skeptical about before. But I just feel all right, we had 2 seasons of them stuck in this box rattling around together. I think we need a break. And so I don't know. Maybe they'll put June on trial. Maybe they'll cut her hand off. I don't know. Something the Waterford, not Waterford, Commander Ambiguous seems to collect broken handmaids, right? So that is or broken members of Gilead. So I think they said that Bradley Whitford is coming back, which I'm glad about because his character made no sense in this season whatsoever.
Right.
So they really
I do have to ask Michal, you did when we were chatting about this during the run of the season, you kind of did Bradley Whitford's character. given like your hate boner for Nick, I would have expected just like the complete opposite reaction, because like when you think about it, his crimes are just on a completely different scale than Nick's.
No, it's totally true. I think for him, it's just because we don't know what the show is doing with him yet.
Yeah,
like, so
I'm not like trying to accuse you of anything. I'm just trying to understand.
No, I'm just radically inconsistent.
Right.
No, I think honestly for me it's that we don't like. I was very frustrated because we haven't met any members of the elite of Gilead who are sympathetic to the resistance, and this guy seemed like that was what they were doing, and then it felt to me like they were trying to hide that by having him be like this creepy psycho, which I think is what they were doing, because obviously he lets Emily go. He not only lets Emily go, he takes her to freedom basically.
Right.
So for me it's more like I don't know. I'm interested in what I don't think we know what his complicity is exactly in the beginning of Gilead. Like, I think that there's a lot of different ways that could play out. And
I mean, they said that he was the architect of the entire Gilead economy, and that included the colonies.
I know, but I don't like that doesn't mean anything to me yet. Maybe I'm being too like skeptical. It doesn't make sense to me that one guy would, like, he didn't come up with a handmaid system. We saw how that was created. Mm-hmm. So
it could be he was like crisis management and just had a bunch of good ideas.
Right.
And all this went down.
Also, I'm sympathetic to people who like have done bad things and then realize that they fucked up massively and want to redeem themselves. So like if and I don't know that that's what he's doing, but that's kind of like my hope for his character, that he's like, holy shit, like I did all this bad stuff and now my wife is crazy because of that. And so I'm like very slowly trying to remedy that by taking in handmaids and other people who would be destroyed by the system otherwise. And maybe like slowly create. I don't know. Like, again, I could. But
this is also like the only time he's ever like smuggled someone out. Also,
we know.
No, we don't know that.
Getting myself in deep shit. It seems like this is the first time that he's actually like okay, yeah, his Martha.
Or could it just be?
And talks back to him too, but like it doesn't seem like he's actually like really lifted a finger before this.
I just think that like he's such a theatrical character. So much of what he does doesn't make sense and isn't consistent that I'm like reserving judgment. I could see him being like the head of Mayday, or I could see him being like first time he's done anything remotely helpful.
And isn't the deep shit also that this is the character who attacked and possibly killed Aunt Lydia? So getting her out, that is deeper than just taking out a normal person. So
it is, yeah.
We don't know. I mean,
and it
it's
seems to me
how,
like there was some kind of plan for Emily when she was at the house, because the Martha was like, oh, you fucked everything up. This is terrible, and like it seemed like that to me. It felt more than just like you attacked, an aunt while you're here,
Yeah, I loved how it was so unclear where they were going. Like at first, every time he walked into the room, I was just like, oh, he's so creepy. He's creepy. It's, oh, this is going to be icky. And then, oh, wait, he's not going to screw her. Hey, well, now what's going on? But now he's getting even creepier. No, now he's nice. What's going on here?
Right. So I didn't think that was great writing, because I felt like that was deliberately trying to keep us on our toes as opposed to like actually characterizing the guy. But it definitely kept you on our toes.
Right, exactly.
I was wondering if they might even retool the show a bit and make June more like a secondary character and focus on a character that we haven't seen before, whether it's Hannah becomes the main character a few years from now, or another handmaid, and just see it from a different perspective while the revolution is occurring in the background or something.
I wonder if that would work, though, because I think we're kind of invested in these characters.
That's
but they could try it. They could try it, but I don't think it would work. And not only that, but let's face it, Elizabeth Moss has gotten too many awards and nominations to, they're not going to tone her down, I don't think.
That's true. She's pretty important.
Yeah.
Right.
I don't know. It's very interesting. Luckily, we don't have to deal with it for a couple more months. I need some more unwinding time, and I watched the finale when it came out, so I'm still not 100% unwound from it. So.
Well, we've got the prequel playing out in real life.
Right. Oh no, please no.
He says safe in Australia.
Right. Oh no, we're not safe.
We don't have to be that pessimist.
That's true. You guys like just okayed gay marriage, right? Like just.
Right. No, it was a non-binding referendum.
Oh, okay.
And was it Ireland
that
just like said abortion was okay? Like
that was Ireland,
ago?
Yeah.
So
No.
I mean,
Australia has.
we're not
Australia
that bad
does
yet.
have it.
Like,
It wasn't binding, but then the government.
There's
did
an
pass.
election coming.
yeah, they're already trying to discriminate, like keep gay children or gay teachers out of school, or they're trying to pass some kind of legislation.
Oh, great.
So
Ay.
tough times ahead.
Ay.
But
All right. Well, on that cheerful note,
the
we'll
goal is
see
to
you all
keep
on
fighting, not to resign.
We'll see
Yeah.
you all on the Abortion
Depression.
Underground Railroad We'll see you all on the Underground Abortion Railroad next year.
Yeah, and like I guess, to leave this on a positive note, like, look, if you're super bummed out about, how uncanny the subject matter depicted in the show is with real life, if you could donate to a pro-choice organization or, or organization that like supports refugees or something like that, or vote in your elections if you live in a democracy, that's
Mhm.
Yeah, like
Absolutely.
all the characters wishing they'd done something to prevent this. We literally can do it now.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Voting is more important now than ever. Wherever you are in the world, wherever you are listening to this, vote. If you don't vote, you're helping this to happen.
mm-hmm.
Stopgilead.tumblr.com. All right. So I'm sure there's still a lot more to say. So if you would like to continue this conversation with us, you can join us on the Podcast of Ice and Fire forums. They are at podcastoficeandfire.com/forums. We will be probably down in the Vassals of Kingsgrave section, which is where we usually live. You can also find the Vassals of Kingsgrave on Twitter, on Instagram, I think on Facebook, on multiple dating sites. Basically, Frippler, whatever you're looking for.
We're still on Friendster.
Oh, we still have friends. We're going to be setting up our MySpace real soon. All right. So thank you all so much for listening. Definitely get in touch with us. And Nolite te bastardes carbonorum, guys.